Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. You know Cleopatra, right? The legendary last queen of Egypt, her dramatic love affairs with Caesar and Antony, the empire-shaking power plays. Well, get ready, because today we're pulling back the curtain on a story history tried to bury. Before Cleopatra stepped into the limelight, before she became a legend, there were two other queens. Two sisters whose very names were almost erased to make room for hers. Their names were Berenice IV and Arsinoe IV. Daughters of the same ruthless father, raised in the same glittering, deadly palace and, ultimately, destroyed by the very crown they all craved. This isn't Cleopatra's story, at least not entirely. This is their story. The untold saga of the sisters Egypt tried to forget. Trust me, it's a wild ride. Imagine being born into the Ptolemaic dynasty. Not exactly a walk in the park. This wasn't your average royal family. We're talking ancient Egypt, where siblings often married each other, fathers sometimes killed their own children for power, and the throne was quite literally built on a foundation of betrayal and blood. Their father was Ptolemy XIX Auletes, a name you probably haven't heard much. He was a king described as weak, greedy, and notoriously loyal only to Rome, which, as we'll see, was a huge problem for Egypt. He had 3 daughters, all incredibly different, but all destined for a life far more dramatic than any play. First, there was Berenice IV, the eldest. She was proud, headstrong, and utterly unyielding. Then came Cleopatra VII, the middle child, whom we all know, clever, charismatic, and destined for eternal fame. And finally, the youngest, Arsinoe IV, often described as quiet but incredibly watchful, absorbing everything around her. Their mothers? Well, history barely bothers to record their names, which tells you a lot about the era. For these 3 sisters, their future wasn't just written, it was scrawled in blood across the walls of their opulent yet dangerous home. Now, let's talk about Berenice IV, the sister who dared to seize the throne. It was a turbulent time in Egypt. The people were fed up with their father, Ptolemy IV, thanks to his heavy taxes and his cozying up to Rome, which everyone saw as a threat to Egyptian independence. The resentment boiled over into a full-blown revolt. What did their esteemed father do? He packed his bags and fled to Rome, leaving his teenage daughters behind in the chaos. The throne stood empty, practically begging for someone to claim it. Berenice, at about 17 years old, saw her chance. She stepped up, declared herself queen, and for 3 incredible years she ruled Egypt. She wasn't playing around either. To secure her power, she married, not once, but twice. Her first husband, a Seleucid prince, apparently disagreed with her ruling style because she had him executed. She was fiercely independent, a true queen fighting for her country's sovereignty against the looming shadow of Rome. But her father wasn't done. He eventually returned, backed by Roman legions and their immense power. Berenice, the young queen who had dared to defy Rome and her father, was dragged from the palace and publicly executed on her father's command. She was only about 20 years old. Imagine the horror. And guess who witnessed it all? A young Cleopatra. You can bet that day taught her a chilling lesson. In Egypt, crowns and coffins often came hand in hand. Years later, it was Cleopatra's turn to wear the crown, initially ruling alongside her younger brother, Ptolemy XIII. But, as you can imagine in this family, their alliance crumbled pretty quickly. Cleopatra found herself exiled, but she wasn't one to give up easily. She made a strategic move, famously having herself smuggled to Julius Caesar in a rug. With Caesar's backing, she returned, sparking a brutal war in Alexandria. While Cleopatra and Caesar were making history, another sister was making her move in the shadows. Arsinoe IV, the youngest of the 3, had been watching, learning. At just 15 years old, a mere child, really, she saw her moment. She bravely escaped the palace during the chaos and declared herself Queen of Egypt, becoming a symbol of resistance against Roman influence. She took command of the Egyptian troops and led them against Caesar's forces. And for a moment, an incredible, heart-stopping moment, she almost succeeded. Caesar was on the brink of defeat, his forces nearly cornered. But Cleopatra had the full might of Rome behind her. Arsinoe, despite her courage, only had Egypt's dwindling resources. She was eventually captured. Can you imagine? This young queen paraded in chains through the streets of Rome during Caesar's triumphant procession. The crowds, usually baying for blood, reportedly pitied her. She was so young, undeniably terrified, yet still carrying herself with a defiant pride. Caesar, perhaps touched by her youth or impressed by her spirit, spared her life. He sent her to live in exile at the sacred temple of Artemis in Ephesus. A small mercy, perhaps, but Cleopatra never forgot. An exiled sister, a potential claimant to the throne, was always a threat. Years passed. The world changed. Julius Caesar was assassinated, and Cleopatra was now ruling Egypt alongside the formidable Mark Antony. But despite all the upheavals, despite the passage of time and the vast distances, Arsinoe still lived in exile. And for Cleopatra, a sister alive meant a threat alive. She simply couldn't afford to have any rivals, especially one who had once successfully challenged Rome. Cleopatra decided it was time to tie up loose ends. She asked Mark Antony for one final, chilling favor: to silence her sister forever. What followed was an act of brutal sacrilege. Roman soldiers stormed the Temple of Artemis in Ephesus, a holy place, a sanctuary where no blood was ever meant to be spilled. There, on sacred ground, Arsinoe IV, the young queen who had defied Caesar, was brutally murdered. She was only 21 years old. A tragic end for a brave young woman caught in the merciless machinations of power. And so, only one sister remained. Berenice, executed by her own father. Arsinoe, murdered by her sister's command. Cleopatra, the last one standing, the ultimate survivor in this deadly game of thrones. But even she, with all her power and cunning, couldn't escape the relentless tide of history and the expansion of Rome. Eventually, Rome came for her too, bringing an end to the Ptolemaic dynasty and Cleopatra's legendary reign. Cleopatra's crown was paid for not just with political maneuvering, but with her sister's blood. Their names, their stories, their courage, they were almost completely erased, overshadowed by the dazzling legend of Cleopatra. But not anymore. We know their names now: Berenice IV and Arsinoe IV. Their voices deserve to be heard. If you were captivated by this untold history and want to hear more forgotten stories of the incredible women history tried to silence, then please hit that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. Your support helps bring these crucial narratives back into the light. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.